Hi, teachers. My name is Sarah Smith. Welcome to Lead to Teach, and welcome to our final third session of Saved by the Structure. Guess what? When I first started the Maximize Structure videos, I thought, okay, these are going to be pretty lightweight, they're going to be pretty quick, they're going to be easy. And the more I reviewed the research, the more I tried to verbalize what structure is, the more I realized, nope. This topic is anything but lightweight and quick and easy. It's actually pretty complex if you want to do it intentionally and do it well. So remember, guided notes are at leadtoteach.com. And otherwise, I'm hoping you can recall what structure is. We said in the past two videos that structure is the organization of teacher-student materials, right? It's the careful placement of the teacher and the students within the classroom, especially as they relate to each other. And it's the establishment of routines in order to maximize success in the classroom. Much like painted lines in a parking lot tell us which way we should go and maximize the organization of a parking lot. Okay, so as I was thinking about structure, I thought I wish there were an acronym that would make structure easy to remember, that structure includes materials, placement, and routines. And I realized there probably is one. It's RPM, right? And it's backwards because really we should attend to materials first before we consider placement, before we look at the most efficient way to conduct routines. But if a backwards acronym helps you to remember what structure entails, there you go. Okay, one word we haven't really talked about is maximize. So can we just define maximize? Maximize means to make as large or great as possible, to make the best use of. So when we talk about maximizing structure, we're talking about making the best use of teacher-student materials, making the best use of teacher-student placement, and making the best use of time spent in routines, which is the topic of today. So let me just give you an example, like a real life application. Four-ways versus roundabouts. Which is better, do you know? It's interesting to me that they both require the same materials. In either case, you have asphalt, you have concrete curbing, you have signage. In both cases, you have to pay attention to the placement of the cars, right? But in four-ways, the routine entails that every car stop at the sign regardless of traffic conditions and congestion. Where in roundabouts, the only time you have to stop is if there's a driver approaching at your left. Studies have shown that roundabouts are actually way more effective and efficient than four-ways. Why? Because you can get about 20% more cars through per minute in a roundabout than a four-way, and there's on average, 62% less crashes in roundabouts versus four-ways. Isn't that interesting? So we're talking about same materials, we're talking about placement of cars, but the way the routine is conducted makes all the difference in these cases. Okay, so let's talk about the why of routines. And if you don't mind, I want to just define what a routine is, because I feel like it's something we say a lot without maybe knowing exactly what it is. So a routine is simply the standard way in which a procedure or a set of steps is completed. So the CDC, for instance, recommends that the most effective hand washing routine is that you wet your hands, then you get soap, then you scrub, then you rinse, and then you dry. If you do the steps in this order, this is the optimal way to reduce spreading of germs. So we're going to talk about routines in the classroom. I want to just give you a quick example classroom-wise. I worked with a teacher a few years ago who said, my restroom routine is just a nightmare. And so we decided to look at it together and see what we could come up with. And the very first day I said, let me just watch it. Let me just time it. Can we do that? And she was right. It was a nightmare. She knew it. The very first day, from the time the kids were excused to go to the restroom until the very last kid crossed the threshold back into the classroom was 17 minutes. Ugh. Are you dying a little bit inside? I was. We changed the routine. We changed the order of the steps. And just by doing that, the very next day, that routine took 2 minutes, which is huge, right? I mean, if we look at how much instructional time is being saved each day from 2 minutes to 17, that's a 15-minute savings in time, right? So how many minutes is that per week or hours? It would be an hour and 15 minutes every week, or 5 hours a month, or times 9 months of school, 45 hours a year. Wow, That's significant. And that's only looking at one recess per day. Assuming the kids had a morning and an afternoon recess, of course, all of those numbers would double, right? So here's what the research says. Research tells us that teachers who strive to maximize instructional time determine the most, here's the key word, efficient way to conduct common classroom tasks and turn them into routines. In other words, a very standard way in which the steps are completed. This is also one of the easiest ways to manage behavior, student behavior, to create feelings of safety and predictability for students and reduce teacher-student stress. So good routines are a way to prevent a lot of problems from happening. So let's talk about the how then you do that. And I'm going to talk about 5 routines that are typically troublesome for teachers. And I want to be really clear in saying that I'm not saying this is the only way to conduct these routines, right? Your job as a teacher is to decide what's most efficient and effective for you in your classroom with your kiddos. But the ones I'm going to show you are routines that I've seen work in a lot of different settings as an instructional coach. These are standard ways in which these routines are conducted that I have seen work. So the first one, bathroom breaks. Dun, dun, dun. I probably get more questions about bathroom breaks than any other routine. So let me tell you what I typically see is that teachers will say, my kids keep asking to use the bathroom during instruction and it's super interruptive. And you're right, it is, yeah. What we don't want to do is say, well, the answer is no. You can't leave during instruction, you can't leave during class, it's up to you to go before school and after lunch. The reason I have a picture of my cute nephew here is because he is a kindergartner. And oh my goodness, do you notice his fine motor skills in these pictures? He's eating his snow cone, and the way he's holding his straw is probably like the most complicated way you could possibly hold it. And what he's doing is as he takes the ice out of his cup, he's flipping it forward, and sometimes it's flipping out onto the ground, and other times it's making it into his mouth. And I figure this kid has been holding a spoon since he was 6 months old. If even something like this is still hard for him, how much more so to regulate his bladder and when he uses the bathroom. And this is true for our primary grade kids in general, grades pre-K, K1, 2. So the answer isn't no, it's up to you to self-regulate going to the bathroom at times that make sense. The answer is also not yes. Just show me the bathroom signal and I'll give you the thumbs up if you can go or the thumbs down if you can't, because kids learn pretty quickly. All I have to do is give a bathroom signal and I can escape a classroom task whenever I choose. So the idea instead is, how can I make this routine as logical as possible? And again, I'm just going to tell you what I've seen work and what we did in the case of this teacher I told you about a second ago, where we went from a 17-minute transition down to a 2-minute transition. So here were the steps, is that we take the entire class before recess or prep. Previously, the teacher was stopping on the way back from recess. We're stopping on the way back from recess, use the bathroom, then meet me back in the classroom. The problem with that, of course, is what? That students aren't super motivated to come back to the classroom in some cases. So it's pretty fun to just take all the time you want in the bathroom. So we first took the entire class before recess. We said, we're going to stop at the bathroom on the way outside. And we required that everyone stop. Even if you think you don't need to go, we're still going to stop and we're still going to stand here for 2 minutes. Because what happened is when we required that everyone stop and stand regardless of need, a lot more kids decided that, yeah, they really did have to go to the bathroom. So we excuse kids who need to go. Even though everybody's going to stop, we're going to say, if you need to use the restroom, this is your chance to go. I have seen teachers who excuse kids in small groups. They say, okay, you 4 can go and you 4 can go. And when those, as kids start trickling back out, then they're excusing other kids to go. I think that's absolutely fine if you want to do it that way. I think you could also train the bathroom expectations first, which is in my first days of school playlist, and teach them how when we go in the bathroom, we use quiet voices and we use 1 squirt of soap and 1 paper towel, and then we come right back out because we're on our way out to recess, right? So I think you could train the bathroom expectations first and excuse all the kids to go and let them just rotate through the stalls, urinals, whatever, as they became available. But what I wouldn't do is just excuse 1 kid at a time. I've seen that done. That takes way too long. So we could train the bathroom expectations first. We should train the bathroom expectations first. Let me restate that. But we're excusing kids who need to go even though everybody is standing there. And then the last step is I would recommend that you walk out when 80% are done. So we're all going to stand there for 2 minutes. We might still have a few kids left in the girls' room and the boys' room, but I'm going to walk out with my class and trust that those kids in the bathroom are going to quickly meet me outside. Why? Because they want to meet me outside. And again, if you have a kid or two who is struggling with this, who isn't meeting expectations, you can always put a correction into place, right? Do you remember those higher level corrections? A redo or a removal? I had a little guy once who was super aggressive in the bathroom, and I just said, do you know what then, dude? I'm going to have you wait, and you're going to use the bathroom at a different time. The other kids are going to go first, and then I'm going to excuse you so that I know you're not touching other kids in the bathroom. And we had to do that for a few days before I said, are you ready to try keeping your hands to yourself? And he said, yep. And then he was allowed to go in with the other kids. So keep in mind, you can use corrections if there's kids who have chronic problems. Otherwise, this is a routine that I've seen work in several settings. Okay, drinks. How do we do the drink routine? Good heavens. Here's the problem teachers often report is that the drinking fountain after recess is taking forever. And it does. It takes forever to allow each kid to get a drink for the amount of time that they want in order to be hydrated enough. So what we're not going to do is say, do you know what? We are going to get drinks at the drinking fountain, but I'm just going to count 1 banana, 2 banana, 3 banana split. Why are we not going to do that? Because even if you do it that quickly, times 20, 25, 30 students, that's a lot of downtime. And you remember downtime always, 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 in my experience, leads to disruption, right? Off task or inappropriate noise or movement. So instead, we're going to say, how can I make this routine as quick as possible? What is it I can do? Here's what I've seen work, is that first, teachers who do this really efficiently tend to obtain water bottles. And they either ask parents to provide the water bottles, right, to send their kid with a water bottle to school, or they as the teacher provide the water bottles. Then you have to think of a time when the kids are going to fill these water bottles up, right? You can't let the water bottles get empty, or that takes even longer for kids to be filling it up throughout the day. What I've seen work most effectively is to require that kids fill their water bottles before school, right? Because they tend to stagger in. Even if they all come on the bus at the same time as they do their morning jobs and have that time before school, there's typically time that they can fill those water bottles. Then what you would want to do is place the water bottles in a designated area. Where can you put the water bottles in the classroom where you're going to have the least amount of congestion? And I would say that's probably the number one consideration with water bottles is where are you going to have the least amount of traffic and congestion? How can you spread them out so that everybody can reach the water bottle without piling on top of each other like a football game? And then we're going to let the kids only take drinks during designated breaks, because if they're hydrating all day, guess what the outcome is? They have to go to the bathroom all day, right? So it's absolutely appropriate to say we're only taking drinks after recess, for instance. And then, of course, we want to replace the water bottles, assuming they're consumable, or wash the water bottles periodically. I've seen some teachers who do it as often as every day, who say every day you're going to take your water bottle home and have the chance to wash it, and you bring it filled, right? They don't even let the kids fill it before school in the classroom. They just say you bring it filled the next day. I've seen teachers who do it once a week. I've seen teachers who do it once a month. So do what you feel works for you and what you morally feel is hygienic. But let me give you some examples of what I've seen. This teacher did parent-provided water bottles, meaning the kids brought them from home, and she had bought tumblers at the dollar store, and she zip-tied them to the legs of the desk so that the kids could keep the water bottles on the floor, but they wouldn't get knocked over. Brilliant. This teacher said, okay, the kids are going to bring water bottles from home, and the designated place to park them is on the tip of their pencil. So when I say park your water bottles on your pencil, they knew that that meant this is where the water bottle went. So the designated place in this case was on the desks. However, I want to read the note that she wrote to you, because she said to me that her team took an entire year of doing it wrong and inefficiently before they realized what it is they wanted to make water bottles work for them. So can I just read this to you? They wrote, "Dear parents, we don't require any school supplies!" Exclamation point. We do, however, allow the kids to have a water bottle at their desks if, and here's the contingency, right? If it is easy to drink from quickly if it's easy to drink from quickly, if it's 20 ounces or less, and has an easy access lid. I thought this was the most important part. In other words, one that doesn't have to screw all the way on and off, because then you've got a lot of noise, it takes time, and you've got spillage, right? So they did the ones with straws, or that you could just open it and take the drink that way. We have found with first graders that if we aren't picky about what kind of water bottles they bring, they often become a hindrance and take away from instructional time, which is what we're trying to prevent, right? We want to add instructional time. Please consider sending your child to school with a water bottle so that she or he can stay hydrated. Thanks for your help. And kids who didn't bring a water bottle were allowed to just get a drink at the drinking fountain. But this teacher said in this case, 90% of her kids had water bottles just on their desks. So that's how they handled it. Okay, example 3, this teacher provided the water bottles. And this is actually what I did. I provided the water bottles and the kids filled them up before school. What I would do is I would replace these water bottles, but I don't recommend that anymore. Were I to go back to the classroom, I would put a parent in charge of this and I would say, hey, look, every couple weeks, can you come and take the old water bottles and replace them with new water bottles? You're in charge of putting labels on them so the kids know which water bottle is theirs, and we're just going to recycle the old ones. And if you want to designate that task to other parents, great, do that, but I'm putting you in charge of this. But in this case, yeah, water bottles above hooks worked great. This teacher didn't have hooks in her classroom, so she used a counter and she provided smaller water bottles that had a flip-top lid. Don't you love that? The flip straw, do you know what I'm talking about? They're labeled with names. And then she said she just washed them once a week in the classroom. So lots of different options, but the idea is not drinking fountains. Drinking fountains tend to take way too long unless you have access to like 5 drinking fountains immediately near your classroom. Okay, routine number 3 is going to take the longest to talk about. It's the morning routine. And here's why. Because in a lot of cases, the morning routine isn't actually a routine. There is no standard set of steps that are completed, and it tends to be chaos. This is so funny to me. This is a picture of before school, and this little boy is standing up, giving an obscene gesture to the rest of the class. But what's fortunate in this case is that the kids are so busy and off task doing other things that they don't even notice that he's doing it. And this was pretty noisy too, as you can imagine, as every kid is doing something different before school starts. So the idea is not, okay, I just need to copy more worksheets in order to keep the kids busy. You can do that. You can do worksheets. That's probably the most common self-start that I see in classrooms, but I'm going to tell you what worked for me and what I might recommend instead as a kinder and first grade teacher. Second grade, I might tell you something just a little different, second grade and above. But it's not just worksheet after worksheet after worksheet. I mean, don't we care about the earth at all? The idea would be, how can I make this routine as smooth as possible? What does a smooth morning routine look like? Well, first of all, we're going to decide what is it that would be helpful for the kids to do before school. And then we're going to post that list of morning jobs or morning tasks. For instance, getting a sharp pencil, right? So you're ready for the day. Next, we're going to set up activities or tasks that the kids can do until the bell rings. What is it that they're going to do that I don't have to explain every day? It doesn't change every day, and I have to give individualized instruction to every kid who comes in, but a standard set of activities or tasks that they know they come in and do. And then we're going to give a 1-minute warning before it's time to clean up. Why? Because when you interrupt kids during a task that they are in the middle of, or that they like doing, or even that they just want to finish, it can create some emotional overreaction. So we always want to give a 1-minute warning before having them clean up. And then we're going to create an if-then contingency for cleanup. In other words, a reason for them to want to clean up quickly and get ready for the day. So let me show you these morning jobs signs, and I'm wondering if you can just notice what they all have in common. Excuse me. And I'll give you a hint right now that it's not necessarily the tasks, right? I'm not looking for commonality among the tasks, but among the signs themselves, what do you notice is in common? So here's the first set. This teacher is having kids sign in, right? They're taking their stick to show if they want school lunch or home lunch. They're getting their pencils. Here's another set of morning jobs. Same thing, they're choosing their lunch, they're filling a water bottle, they're getting their worksheet set on their desk. This was in a kindergarten classroom. You're going to come in and hang up your backpack and jacket, turn in your homework, pick up your name tag so that I know you're here, right? Take your name tag out of the pocket chart so that I can see you've arrived. And then this last one, this was a second grade classroom. Kids are going to turn in homework. They're going to choose their lunch. So they take their stick and put it into either the school or home lunch container as a way for the teacher to take attendance and lunch count, get a sharp pencil, and then start your fact practice. Okay, so between these two, did you notice commonalities? And here's what I noticed, ready? Is that all of these signs are posted near the door. They're posted in a place where kids will immediately see them when they walk in. Next, which is so important, I think, is that they're printed and visual. And I would do this even in the upper grades, even up to 5th, 6th grade. I would make sure I had a visual prompt as well as the print because it makes it more likely that kids will look at it, right? And then the tasks, you probably didn't notice this because you wouldn't know what was required in each teacher's classroom, but I noticed that the tasks were displayed in order of what makes sense, right? So let me go back to this one, for instance. It makes sense that when you come in the door, you're going to turn in your homework before you put that empty homework folder on your desk. Then you're going to go over to the table where you choose your lunch, and that doubles as attendance. And then you'll fill your water bottle, set it down on your desk, get your sharp pencil so that you're ready to sit down and immediately start your fact practice. So the teachers have been mindful about the order in which the tasks are placed. Okay, did you notice too that attendance and lunch count was built in each time? This is probably the most common way that I see routine 4 implemented, is that I'm taking attendance and lunch count as part of those morning jobs. You tell me that you're here by telling me what your lunch choice is. So that would be routine 4, but I'm still in the routine 3 of the morning routine, okay? So don't get confused, okay? Because then we need to think about what task or activity are the kids going to do until the bell rings. Here's what I had in my classroom. I loved to have play centers. I love to say, these, for instance, are wedgets. Oh, these are like the best toys in the world. If you've never seen these, I love these. I'm going to have Legos, I'm going to have magnetics, and I'm going to have coloring books. And your job is to come in and choose the play center that you want. There's designated areas where each of these can be used. And you're just going to have time to relax and enjoy each other's company and quietly chat with each other until the bell rings. I will tell you what, when I started doing this, I had way less tears about kids coming to school. They were excited to come to school and play with the toys and interact with each other and not to sit down at their desk and start a worksheet, which was then going to fatigue them before we had even started phonics or math or writing or whatever our heavy lifting was that morning. Let me tell you a quick note about how to make coloring books effective if you're going to do something like this. So I would get coloring books from Hobby Lobby. They have the best coloring books. They're so simple. They're not too complicated. And I would put them in the bin. Kids could choose the page they wanted, but we're not just choosing a page a day, right? I mean, you could, but sometimes kids want to take a lot of time on them and make them look really pretty. So what I did is I gave each kid a color-coded folder, right? And that's just to create ease in finding the folder. So I have green, purple, red, blue, orange, whatever. And the names are on the outside so that you can see as you pull it out if it's your folder. And what you're going to do is take your coloring page and you can work on it as long as you need to. When it's time to clean up, it just goes back in the folder and back on the shelf so that you can finish it the next day if need be. And when it's all the way done, you can set it on my chair over by the rug, and I'm happy to show it to the class before you put it in your mailbox. I loved this. I had boys and girls that absolutely loved this morning center. And guess what? You get to use markers or crayons at this center. So it was a really cheap, should I say cost-effective, not cheap, a cost-effective way to provide something for the kids to do. And I did switch these out probably every 6 weeks or so. And I had parents provide them. In case you're wondering like where I got these, I sent notes home for parents and just said, hey, instead of giving me a Christmas gift, like another candle or a bottle of lotion that I don't need, here's my Amazon wish list. If you want to consider donating toys for your child to play with before school, and I didn't word it that way, it sounded much more academic. Here you go. Okay, I saw another teacher who also did play centers. She said she got the majority of her items at a local thrift store. Genius! I love that. So, so cool. Here's a picture of her kiddos playing just with little animals. I saw a teacher once who did Play-Doh. Excuse me, why have I had such a scratchy throat? I don't know. She had Play-Doh and each kid had their own container of Play-Doh labeled with their name. I probably, if I did this, would say, I'm not so concerned that you take the same one every time. I'm happy just to let kids choose from the Play-Doh bin whatever color they want. Okay, second grade and above, here's what I've seen work, is that you do have some sort of worksheet. I really like fact practice. I think that's a great way to get your fact practice done for the day in math. And then kids can read afterwards. They can read at their seats, or some teachers have like reading nooks around their classroom. So probably second grade and above. I would think they don't need play centers as much as kinder and first grade students do. Okay, we're still in the morning routine. Can you believe this? Yeah, the morning routine is like complex. When the bell rings, I would give the kids that 1 minute warning. I've seen teachers who go in a sing-song voice, 1 more minute, and then the kids have to echo 1 more minute so that he or she knows they heard. But you wouldn't have to. You could just say, okay, 1 more minute until it's time to clean up. But I would probably do it at the bell. I see some teachers who, school starts at, let's say 9 o'clock, and they let the kids go till 9:15 or 9:20 in the name of easing into the day. That's too much time. That's way too much time. You're going to get into the risk of downtime equals disruptions if you're doing that. The morning routine and those activities you do before the bell are more valuable if they're kept as short as can be, and if we make the most use of instructional time, right? That's what maximizing structure is all about. So I would recommend doing it at the bell, the cleanup, or the 1 minute warning. And then this is when you can enter your attendance and lunch count, which you know because that's how the kids showed you that they were there for the day, right? After 1 minute, then you would say, okay, it's time to clean up, sit ready at your seat. And I want you to notice this little boy. This is a little boy who really struggles to follow directions. He struggles with compliance. And look how he's sitting when it's time to clean up. And how is the teacher getting him to do that? It's because of her contingency that she's creating at cleanup. She's saying, okay, 1 more minute, and then it's time to clean up. After that 1 minute, she's saying, okay, time to clean up, sit ready at your seat. And the kids know that if they are done at the end of that minute and they're sitting ready at their seat in power position, like this little boy is, their name might get drawn for the pledge person. So this is what it would sound like at the end of that minute. If this person is sitting ready in their seat, and I love that word, and all their morning jobs are done, my pledge person is, and every day it's a different pledge person. And there's a container of sticks just for pledge people. These are not the sticks that you use during instruction, right? Because we can't ensure that every kid gets a turn that way in an equal fashion. So there's a separate container for the pledge person. And if that person is sitting ready, would they come up and tell the kids, please stand, look at the flag, ready, begin. That's all it is. That's all the pledge person does. But I love that this teacher tied it to you have to have your morning jobs done too. And she doesn't check that every day the whole year. But in the training phase at the beginning of the year, she's very, very intentional about saying, okay, I'm going to draw a pledge stick. My pledge person has to be somebody who has all their morning jobs done. I'm going to walk over and check if this person has chosen their lunch. If you haven't, this is your chance to come do it. And you see 5 or 7 kids get up and run over and quick choose their lunch. I'm going to check if their water bottle's filled. I'm going to check if they have a sharp pencil, and she's looking. If you haven't done this, this is your chance to do it. And she trains the kids pretty quickly that you do have to get those morning jobs done in order to be the pledge person. Okay, when do you train the kids on all this? Because this might seem like a silly question to ask, but I've seen teachers who say, okay, I want to do this morning routine. Yeah, I love it. So I'm going to set it up tonight after school, and then the next day as the kids come in the door, I'm going to be telling them, oh, this is your new way to choose your lunch. Oh, over here, this is your new way to choose your lunch. Oh, did you trade? Look at the signs. See these signs right here? It says trade for a sharp pencil. And they try to individually train the kids on what the morning routine looks like, which ends up causing more problems than not. So of course, the answer would just be the afternoon before, right? You get it set up, and then the afternoon before, like as close to the next morning as possible, you're going to train the entire group on what the morning routine looks like. What are their morning jobs? What do they do after their morning jobs? When they clean up, what did they do, right? Sit ready at their seats. And then what's that contingency for cleanup? Is it a pledge person or something like that? Kids who do clean up might get to be my pledge person. It's going to take a minute to explain all of that. So do it as a whole group, not individually. Okay. The last routine that I often see creates problems for teachers is paper passing. Dun, dun, dun. The problem is that it takes forever to pass out papers. And I say forever is anything longer than 30 seconds. Because even in a large classroom, papers should be able to be distributed to every student in 30 seconds or less. So if it's taking longer than that, then that's probably too long. So here's what we don't want to do is say, let me as the teacher pass out each page individually. That would be like when I planted my strawberry plants that I'm going to go and water each plant individually with my watering can. That's just not efficient, isn't it? Even if I am using a watering can just to go like this and water the group at a time. So we're not going to pass out each page individually, but we also don't want to rely on student helpers. Oh, and I know they're so popular, and I know it's so fun to say one of our classroom jobs is to have a paper passer. I know it. I know. I hear I hear you resisting me on this. But let me tell you from experience what I've seen. Problems that arise when students help pass out papers. What are they? First of all, there's increased noise, because I've never seen that students can pass out papers without either conversation or conflict. Conversation as they chat with friends they like, or conflict as you didn't give me one, or you forgot mine. It always creates conversation or conflict, especially in grades K1, 2. Maybe the upper grades can handle it. I'm not totally sure. There's always increased transitional time, right? Because why? Because students do not have as finely developed fine motor skills as teachers do. So it takes them forever to to separate the papers. The papers often drop, then they have to pick them up, then they forget kids that they've given to them and that they haven't. And then we have loss of instructional time, right? So I don't recommend that students help pass out papers. Instead, we're going to say, how can I make this routine as efficient as possible, as quick as possible? Well, of course, first we want to make papers easy to access, right? That's always number one, is that can I quickly reach the papers myself? And then I would recommend using a group paper passing routine. My favorite is that the teacher sets the stacks and that the kids pass down. So if this is my aisle down the middle of my classroom and I have 4 kids on this side of the aisle and 4 on this side, I'm setting 1, 2, 3, 4 papers on this end desk on either side, and the kids are going to take the top paper and pass the rest down, and take the top paper and pass the rest down for every side of the aisle. The reason I say no matter when is because I've seen teachers who do this really effectively, where the kids will be gone at PE, for instance, and afterwards we're going to come back and we have to do a writing page. So the teacher will set the stacks on these end desks, and kids know when they come in that they're going to pass down the papers. Whoever is the first one there is going to pass down the papers for their row. So I love that you can do that even when the kids aren't there, and you can train them to pass down papers. My tip, though, you're going to think this is so ridiculous, is not to forget to train the students on this. Because I've seen so often where teachers will say, oh, that's a good idea. And then they set the stack of papers down for the group without going through that tempo training. Remember tempo, right? I'm going to tell you the expectation. I'm going to explain what it looks and sounds like. I'm going to model it or have a row of students model it. We're going to practice it, and I'm going to offer you feedback, affirmative and corrective, as we go. So to make this work, you would have to train the students really specifically. For tables, same thing. The teacher would set stacks down to an end student and then train the kids to pass down. I have seen in kinder especially that sometimes teachers sing a song during this. So put your name on your paper, put your name on your paper, put your name. If you don't put your name, then they all look the same. Put your name on your paper, put your name, right? And they sing that, and the kids have to have the papers passed down by the end of the song. I saw a teacher once who did an alphabet chant. I loved this. She just chose random letters of the alphabet, and as she passed the papers down, she would say, ready, kids? P says, and they would say, pa. P says, pa. P says, pa, pa, pa. So they were filling in letter sounds for whichever letter she chose. G says, g. G says, g. G says, g, g, g. And what I loved about that is she could do as many letters as she needed to until the time was up, the papers were passed down, and it gave the kids something to do that was valuable instructionally, right? Okay, so here's our rule of thumb for any routine, no matter which routine we're talking about. The idea is if it's a set of tasks that happens every day, it needs to be a logical, quick, smooth, and probably the most key word, efficient routine. Why? Because this is what makes predictability possible. When we complete those steps in the same fashion every day, that's what makes predictability possible. And anytime you have a predictable set of steps, it makes speed possible and it increases feelings of safety and reduces disruption and stress, right, for teacher and students. Okay, so final question, what did you like or learn about maximizing structure of routines? For me, it's this idea that efficient routines tend to be effective routines. The more efficient I can make it, the smoother I can make it, the more effective it's likely to be. And thus concludes maximizing structure. Thanks for watching. See you next time.